So I'm gonna go live now because I want to see how my signal is. I want to get you guys motivated and make sure that you can see us on all the platforms. So I'm doing this live on Facebook, and I'm also doing it on my YouTube channel. So welcome. And I am so excited that we can do this and that my friend Juanita Mora is going to join us. I have a lot of questions from you guys. We are going to give you concrete information and definite answers from a medical professional. And if you have any questions in Spanish, si tienen preguntas en español, por favor, también me las pueden hacer porque Juanita y yo somos bendecidas y hablamos los dos idiomas. And so if you have any questions in either language, feel free. If you have a question that you need to ask in Spanish para que abuelita te crea, nosotras también te lo podemos responder. So thank you, Taina. I appreciate that. So anyway, welcome. I have a lot of questions from myself. I can't wait to get my 8-year-old vaccinated, and hopefully that'll be soon. I've been driving my friend, Dr. Mora, crazy and about when are you getting them? When can I take my child? As she knows, I am not afraid of this. I am not opposed to vaccines. I am fully vaccinated for COVID and for anything and everything. I come from a very Catholic family, but also a family of scientists. So, or at least my grandma was a scientist. So I truly believe in science. So I wanted to have Juanita because even so, con lo mismo les digo que my 8-year-old is asthmatic, and I've been truly nervous about COVID and the repercussions on him. He's had pneumonia many times in his short life until his amazing allergist, Dr. Newhall, put him in a regimen, gave him the pneumonia shot. And so he has done really, really well. But I am scared of COVID when it comes to him. And I'm also afraid of the vaccine, just a little bit. I wouldn't say afraid. I just don't know what's going to happen. And I want to have you guys ask all the questions. Dr. Mora has the answers. So let me introduce her. Dr. Mora is from Chicago, allergist. Or allergy, and she focuses on asthma, allergy, y todo lo demás, because like a good Latina doctor will ask her about anything. Hola.
Hola, Ana. So good to see you and be here with you today.
I know. I'm so excited to see you and hear you. I switched to my headphones. Can you hear me?
Yes. Perfect.
Oh, I hear you even better now. Okay, Juanita, first of all, when can I bring Alex over?
We're hoping to get the full CDC and American College of Immunization actual committees recommendations. Either they're meeting tomorrow and Wednesday. So either by tomorrow night or by Wednesday, we'll have official recommendations, especially, maybe on kids with special needs, for example, kids who've had cancer or with autoimmune diseases, and what to do with the vaccine as well, too. And so we're waiting that to have the final blessing, and then they will release the vaccine to us and we will start distributing, and we're super excited.
So we're waiting for CDC go ahead. We already have FDA go ahead?
Yes, correct. So the CDC kind of gives us the regulations, for example, like kids with allergies, like they did with the adults with PEG allergy or polyethylene glycol. This is what we need to do, or kids with allergies to injectable drugs. This is what we're going to do. Who has the green light, who has a yellow light, who has a red light.
Okay. And when they get those red lights, I've always wondered, so then these people have to be hyper aware of since they cannot get vaccinated, or do they stagger the dosages, or what do they do?
So it depends. So if, for example, they have bad allergies, then, for example, in the adult population, they couldn't get an mRNA vaccine, but they got the Johnson & Johnson. So there was an alternative there. Or they got pre-medicated with allergy medications and maybe steroids before they got the vaccine. So that way they could get it, but under the supervision of an allergist. So that way everything would go smoothly as well.
So we're waiting for those guidelines as well.
Correct.
That does not mean that, Alice is asthmatic, and I've told you 1,000 times, it's not bad. It usually happens when he gets a cold. But should I be worried about his body's reaction to this vaccine?
No, Anna, because 20% of the kids in the studies here in the United States had asthma as a comorbidity. So we know that kids with asthma did really, really well in the studies, and they were able to honestly get both vaccines. What I'm telling parents to remember is kids' bodies are used to vaccines, and they're really strong. And they make this huge, nice antibody response. And don't, like an adult said, they would take time off work and say, oh, well, they're going to be off
me
for like a
me
day.
acuesto. Espérate,
But
people were preventively, no, wait, clear my schedule. I'm getting the vaccine, that's a day off. Y después no les pasaba nada.
Correct. And with kids, the nice thing is they're used to it. It's kind of like when
Yeah.
they go for the regular vaccines to the pediatrician. You just take them, they might have a little sore arm or a little fever, fatigue. Those were the three most common symptoms: sore arm, fever, and fatigue. And they lasted less than 24 hours, and then they rebounded because they're kids, and it's awesome.
Yeah. Why is it only Pfizer for now?
Because Moderna hasn't submitted for that age group yet, the 5 to 11 years of age yet. And Johnson & Johnson is still undergoing their studies in that age group as well, too.
That doesn't mean that it's not going to happen.
Correct.
Okay. Are they going to need 2 shots?
Yes. So the Pfizer vaccine is 2 doses, 21 days apart, just like the adults did. But it's 1/3 the dose of the adults.
Okay.
So it's 10 micrograms versus 30 micrograms that the adults got at each dose, Anna. And one beautiful thing in teenagers, we did see the rare occasion of myocarditis or that inflammation in the heart, especially in male teenagers. It was not 0 cases were seen in the 5 to 11 years of age. And what we're thinking is that it was dose dependent. So they were getting the higher dose. So that caused that inflammation in the heart. Because based on an Israel study where the males only got 1 dose, no myocarditis actual symptoms happened.
Okay, so, I'm gonna let you nerd out. And if anyone has any questions while she's nerding out, ask me the questions you have about your children. And I have the ones that you've submitted already, and I'm gonna ask her, but I'm gonna let you nerd out. When they try these, because I know you love this, when they try these, do they go little by little and then they check the antibodies?
Yeah, so they were monitored on a monthly basis after receiving both vaccines, Anna, and they were monitored as far as how long the antibody level response, how much protection did they make. What they found in this age group, 5 to 11 years of age, is that they made a really great response, antibody response. And you know how in us adults, the antibody response kind of ran out after 6 months, and we needed a booster. In kids, what they're looking at is their antibody level responses are lasting a lot longer and a lot higher. So good thing is they might not be ones to need a booster.
They might not need it. We're not sure yet. Okay, so I have a question from Lisa here. My daughter will be 12 in April. Will this dose be strong enough for her?
Good question, Lisa. So honestly, you could, because it's till April, right? So might as well just give this 1 dose that's FDA approved currently for the 5 to 11 years of age. And what she'll do is it'll probably become a yearly vaccine. So then she can get the higher dose once, in a year from now. So honestly, give her the 2 vaccines at the lower dose now, because the weight range was studied, and the weight range was from what a 5-year-old usually weighs to what an 11-year-old usually weighs.
Okay, so everyone's covered. If you had kids that were 5 and weighed like they were 7, you're all good. If your kids were always taller and bigger like mine, they're all covered. Can they get the flu vaccine at the same time as the COVID vaccine? Because they said adults could.
Yeah, great question. Yes, they can get both the flu vaccine and the COVID-19 vaccine at the same time. Only caveat is if they've ever had an allergic reaction to the flu vaccine or to another vaccine, talk to your allergist or talk to your doctor. Because what I'm doing for those patients, separating them at least 48 hours. So if they have a little reaction, I know which one did it.
Okay. Yes, love it. Okay, here's another one. Another question I have from, okay, here we go. I have MS. This is Dana. My son is 9. Should I be worried about my son's genetic disposition to MS with this vaccine? Great question.
Really, really great question. So there were no cases of Guillain-Barré or any actual autoimmune diseases that were actually seen in the studies as well too. As always, talk to your doctor, but it would be a very low risk, which is a really good thing.
Perfect. Okay. Hilda, this is kind of like I was joking about, but it's true. What about the child's weight? Will that be taken into consideration for dosage amount? My child is a giant 10-year-old trapped in the body of a 13-year-old. Yeah, you've seen my 14-year-old. She looks like she's 17.
Yeah, so weight was taken into account, so don't worry. Give the lower dose. If the only way I would say wait a minute is maybe if their birthday's coming up in November or December.
Okay.
And within the next 2 months, then we want to, maybe wait it out and get the higher dose. But if it's not coming up within the next 2 months, they're already in school. We want to get them protected before the holidays. This is the time to do it now. And then they can get the higher dose at the next birthday.
Yeah, he's only 10, so he's going to have to wait a little longer. Yes. Can you explain a bit more on what's happening to the heart in male teens?
Correct. So what they saw was that myocarditis, or an inflammation of the heart, was seen with the mRNA vaccinations, both the Pfizer and the Moderna vaccinations. And it was seen both in Europe and here in the United States. And what it was found to be is a little bit of dose dependent. It did subside, but here is the really cool part. Looking at the whole studies, COVID-19 infection gives 16 times higher risk of myocarditis or this heart inflammation than the COVID-19 vaccine. So benefits definitely outweigh the risk. It's self-limiting, goes away on its own, and barely needs any intervention as well too, but something to note. So
my husband had myocarditis and it was treatable, and he's fine, and he had it in his 30s because of a virus. So it's not a death sentence. It's not going to provoke a heart attack. It's and like you said, the consequences from COVID on the heart could be even worse. Okay, what's the difference between the booster and the vaccine, since kids will probably not need a booster, but a yearly vaccine instead?
Good. So what in adults, what we find is that our antibody response, or how much protection we're able to make in the blood, lasts only about 6 months after the 2 vaccinations, which is the reason why we're asking people to boost up. So 2 things need to happen. Now, adults need to boost up, and then the kids need to get vaccinated for the first time as we head into the holiday season. With kids, we're seeing a higher antibody response lasting longer as well too, which is a good sign that they might not need the booster. Booster dose for adults is the same for Pfizer as the original vaccination. For Moderna, it's half the dose for the booster actual dosage, just so everyone knows. Johnson & Johnson, it's the same dosage.
Okay. So here we go, because when I posted that you were going to be with me, these are some people who probably cannot connect live, but I want to answer their questions just in case. All right. This is Mon ST. Can he get COVID and still transmit it afterwards like adults?
Good question. So they saw less transmission in kids. So out of the 2,282 kids that were in the clinical studies for Pfizer, 3 kids got COVID that were in the vaccinated group versus 16 that were in the placebo group, or the ones that were getting the fake vaccine. And the symptoms tended to be milder in the vaccinated kids than the ones who received the placebo vaccine. So even though they are going to be a lot lower risk for actual transmission or getting COVID-19 with the vaccine, so this is the good reason to get them vaccinated.
Okay, so will they be able to transmit it?
They might be able to transmit it even with the vaccine. There is a low risk of that happening.
Gotcha. Will any ingredient in the vaccine overstimulate his weakened lungs and cause inflammation?
Good question. So no ingredient in the vaccine that's been known to cause any inflammation within the lungs or anything like that.
What are the long-term side effects in children after injection?
Good question. So what we know from studying mRNA vaccinations like the Pfizer is that long-term actual sequelae are very small with the vaccination. It's a newer vaccine, but what we know is it doesn't affect fertility, because I know that's where it's going, the questions that they're going. It doesn't affect fertility. It doesn't cause blood clots either. Less chance of myocarditis, as I said, 0 cases seen in the clinical
With this age
studies,
group.
and overall side effect profile so much safer with the vaccine.
Okay. What are the percentage of vaccine injuries in boys versus girls? What are vaccine injuries?
Probably maybe side effects like myocarditis versus boys versus girls.
Gotcha.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking they're going to. But in the teenagers, what we saw is that boys tended to have a higher risk of the myocarditis than girls. So it was, a 6-to-1 ratio when it came to possible myocarditis in the teenage boys to girls ratio.
Perfect. You just to clarify, do you want them to wait in between the flu and the COVID shot? Candy, another mom is asking.
No, unless they have had an allergic reaction to an injectable medication, they don't need to wait.
Okay, perfect. All right. So those are my questions from before. Okay, so someone's saying that you're lying because there are no studies on children. So thank you for joining us, Deborah, and questioning the medical doctor that went to school for this and is putting her face in public to lie to us because of some conspiracy. I don't even know why I give those people the time of day. But you still have that. And that, I think, is your major concern, Dr. Mora. And that's why we want to do this, because you still have, like somebody said, ask her where el cuento of the infertility came from. You still get people, and I'm always hesitant when I talk about this topic, because you still get people who are following the Facebook instead of the science, and who think that you are all part of a conspiracy to kill us and do selective, I don't know, some kind of Darwinian process that we're going through this. So what is any benefit to getting kids vaccinated if you can be vaccinated and still spread it? Good. You actually formulated a smart question. Go ahead.
So here's the reason why I tell parents it's so important to vaccinate kids. There's been 2 million kids who've gotten COVID-19 between the ages of 5 to 11 years of age during this pandemic. Out of those 2 million, 8,300 wound up ending in hospitalized, and 1/3 of them wound up in ICU. 179 kids ages 5 to 11 we have lost in the United States secondary to this pandemic. And I tell parents, we can't lose another child. They're back in school, they're alive. This is protecting them. And as we're heading into the holiday season, Thanksgiving, as we're heading into Christmas as well too, the travel season, this is the time to get kids vaccinated, because if we start now, they will have both vaccines by Christmas time.
And I appreciate, listen, Deborah, and my husband just came back and said, don't be dismissive. I know that you're curious, but you were saying that these were lies. So that's when I get upset. When you call out someone with credentials who the only thing they've done is try to help our community, about lying, because that's not what we do. Neither one of her. You don't know me for being a reporter who would put lies on. Or WGN. So that is my concern. I know that you're sincerely wondering. I wonder what more evidence you need. She also said, are you seeing blood clots? Because I know she asked about blood clots in girls. You said no, right? Correct. Are you seeing them in teen girls?
No blood clots in teen girls either.
Someone else said, Miriam is asking, has this affected girls' menstrual cycle?
Good question. So no irregularities have been found or hormonal imbalances that have been seen, especially in teenage girls, which is something that they did look for through, and they actually monitored throughout the studies as well too.
Thank you. No worries, Deborah. You know that we always misinterpret because we're typing so fast. So yes, thank you for clarifying. I just get real pissy because Dr. Mora and I have been dealing with this for 2 years, and our Latin community and our Black community continues to be mostly affected and the least responsive to the kind of things that Juanita and I are doing. So I don't know if you're a member of either one of those communities. So it's extremely hard to still listen to people. But I love that everyone is having the same questions. Staff members and little kids in my school are still getting COVID. Here's the thing. How is vaccinating changing this discourse? Because, for example, we've been very lucky in our school, but both kids have been exposed. The little one hasn't been exposed, but the 14-year-old was exposed, but was able to go to school because she was vaccinated. So is this scenario going to change where all the moms are calling each other like, who was it? Who has the scarlet letter? Who do we need to look for? Which is awful.
Well, I hope we can change it, Anna. There's 28 million kids that are left to be vaccinated in the ages of 5 to 11 in the United States. It can get us to herd immunity. It can get us there. Look at how vaccinating adults and how much we're able to open, go back to restaurants, go back to concerts, do all these great things. Imagine what we can do for kids, because they are in the same position we were in last year, where not many of us were vaccinated, et cetera. Now it's their turn. So that way they can go to school and be safe, and the teachers, everyone in a safe environment.
Yeah. Is there different dosage for smaller children? My 8-year-old is pretty small, wondering if there would be a different dosage.
No, so it's one dosage for all kids ages 5 to 11 years of age. It's a nice low dose, which is a good thing. And like I said, they did study the weight ranges with it.
And, one thing that you were saying, how it'll improve our life too. And obviously this is not about me, but I've discussed this over and over with you guys and with Juanita. My 8-year-old hasn't seen his grandparents in person in 2 years. Is going to be this December. And he sees them on FaceTime. My daughter was able to go see them after 18 months, just like me, because she was vaccinated. We missed out on Christmas with my parents, who are 83 and 84. I had my kids late. I want them to have the most exposure to my parents that they can. And not having my son not see my parents for 2 years has taken away from him the experiences that his sister has been able to have, right? And I live far away. So Alex, my son, keeps asking me, and I've told Dr. Mora, when am I getting the vaccine? When am I getting the vaccine? And this is a kid who didn't want to go trick-or-treating yesterday because COVID was still around, and he's not vaccinated, and he's afraid of people who are not vaccinated. Not afraid in the sense that I've made him fearful and to hate all these people. Don't jump on that bandwagon now. He's just afraid because he knows he has asthma, and he knows that he has had pneumonia, and he knows that he can't see his grandparents unless he gets this vaccine. So it affects a sensitive group of people too.
Absolutely. And that's one thing. The mental health of kids will also improve. It's going back to birthday parties with their friends. How many of them have had a birthday party with their friends? Yeah. A lot of kids I talk to are waiting for the vaccine. Some little ones tell me, I just want a Christmas picture with Santa without a mask. Yeah, I mean, so many great, like they want to see their grandparents and hug them. You're right. Absolutely.
David, is it the same time between doses similar to the adult version? Is it 2 weeks?
21 days apart between doses.
Ours was what? 3 weeks, right?
Yeah.
21 days. Same thing as adults.
Correct.
Okay. Here we go. My child has asthma. This is from YouTube. I know you spoke about asthma, but just want to verify there's nothing to be worried about in terms of her already somewhat compromised immune system. If Alice asks it again, we're going to repeat it over and over. Don't worry.
Yes, absolutely. Kids with asthma can definitely get it. If it's uncontrolled asthma where they're having active wheezing or anything else, obviously talk to your doctor, get it under good control first, and then get the vaccine.
Gotcha. So that's one thing. If you have an asthmatic like mine, that it depends on the weather or a cold, and he's fine now, you're fine. But if he's actively sick or having an episode, then do it under the supervision of your doctor. See? Sonó bien.
Sonó bien.
Okay. All right. I want to ask this one because I have the Pfizer vaccine and have been sick ever since. It's been a month and a half. My 7-year-old will not be getting it. Jennifer, have you talked to your doctors to make sure that it was the vaccine that got you sick? What does this sound like, Juanita?
Yes, a lot of people sometimes had an underlying little viral illness or something before they got the vaccine. So I always tell people, if you're feeling under the weather, don't go get the vaccine. Let it resolve first. But if something was already brewing, then obviously vaccine will push your immune system and might bring it out. It's something that was underlying. So definitely talk to your doctor or get it checked. So definitely they can get you better, because vaccine should not cause fatigue like you're having at this time.
Okay. If an adult received the two Moderna vaccines, is it safe for an adult to get the booster from Pfizer?
Yes, mixing and matching of vaccines completely allowed by the CDC and FDA. So even the Johnson and Johnson, if they wanted to boost with the Johnson and Johnson, would be great too.
Okay. I had a rash 5 days after my first dose of Pfizer. Will that be something that my kids will get?
So rashes were not seen as part of the side effects from the actual vaccine, but it can happen. So making sure that you monitor the arm site as well too, like we do with any vaccine.
Yeah. I got the Moderna and I have not been myself ever since.
Talk to your doctor.
Yeah.
Because something is going on. It could be
Yep.
like I said, your immune system got pushed in some way.
Yeah.
And so I tell patients sometimes you need a little reset, which is what I do a lot with patients, which means, if they had a sinus infection going on, you treat the sinus infection, suddenly everything gets better. So
and one thing I was going to tell you, sometimes there are coincidences. The dad of a friend of mine who I adore, one of my best friends, after the vaccine had this fever that wouldn't go away, and his doctor's like, maybe it's related, maybe you have this mono. It was very early on. It's an elder man, he's 70. It turned out that it was a tumor on his thigh that was provoking it, that he had for a while, and the vaccine kind of saved his life, because he went to the doctor thinking, what did this vaccine do to me? And as he got progressively worse, then he complained about this pain on his leg. And thankfully, knock on wood, after radiation surgery, he's fine. But he actually thought it was the vaccine.
Wow.
Do we know what % of kids have been infected for COVID? How close are we to herd immunity? Oh, Juanita, nerd out for her, Juanita. Go ahead, throw your numbers, girl.
So 2 million kids ages 5 to 11 years of age have gotten COVID-19
in the United
States. So that's a huge, big number in the scheme of things. And we want to make sure, this is the reason why we want to protect them, especially now that we're heading into school. They're live. And, as we head again into the cold flu season, we are going to live a twindemic, because flu is going to rise as well, too, because people are releasing the mask. They're not being as careful anymore. And we have to think of the children, which is the reason why we're really, as a medical community, pushing both the flu vaccine and the COVID-19 vaccine as well.
What about, just to remind people, what about myocarditis in adolescent boys?
So very low percentage. And when we look at the myocarditis in teenage boys, COVID-19 infection has 16 times higher risk of causing myocarditis or this inflammation of the heart than the COVID-19 vaccine. So this is where the benefits outweigh the risk. And it tends to be self-limiting and rarely actually needs any intervention, but something to watch out for. In our 5 to 11 years of age, there were 0 cases, thought because we're doing a lower dose of the mRNA vaccine in kids.
Ay, bendito. Miriam, I think you should call Juanita, because she's gone to the doctor 3 times y se está volviendo loca la pobre. Y se siente mal. So I swear to God, call Dr. Mora. Lord have mercy. Because seriously, I feel bad for you. And I know how that feels. That I'm telling you, my friend's dad, we thought, at one point they told him, you're going to have a fever for 3 months. And eventually they found out what it has. And I hope, Miriam, que no tengas nada malo, pero siempre si quieres llamar a la doctora, llámala. Can I get the flu and COVID vaccine at the same time?
Yes, you can.
Okay. And let's see. Why is it okay to mix booster, but yet we were told not to mix when we were getting the first 2 vaccinations? Great question, Hilda.
Good question. I actually wound up mixing a lot because I'm an allergist.
What? Te perdí. Is your sister calling?
Coming in. So basically, one thing we know is that I mixed early on because people were having allergic reactions to either the Pfizer vaccine or to the Moderna vaccine. And so then I would boost or do the second dose with the Johnson and Johnson. So I knew early on that it was going to be safe because if you think of the mechanisms of both
Mira qué
vaccines,
linda, haciendo experimentos. Haciendo experimentos.
when
Thank
we
God
look
you
at
have the
the
knowledge.
both vaccines, they both increase spike protein. And so it's different mechanisms, right? One is messenger RNA, and that's what increases the spike protein antibodies. And this is how we get protected against coronavirus versus the actual Johnson and Johnson that does adenovirus. So I knew early on we were going to be able, same thing with the actual people who got blood clots with the Johnson and Johnson, the first vaccine, we boosted them now with the Pfizer or the mRNA vaccines or Moderna as well too. So before we didn't have studies to show, okay, yes, you can safely mix it. You only had anecdotal actual stories like mine where I had people who had allergies. But now we can actually say, you know what? There's actual studies that show the mixing of vaccines is completely safe.
I like this question because I know that this is something that at the beginning I was worried about. How do we know an mRNA is safe for children when they have never been administered before in mass amounts?
Good question. So they've done this study not only in the United States, just so you know, the Pfizer didn't just do clinical studies here in the US, but it was worldwide. So worldwide, we had about 6,482 kids who were enrolled ages 5 to 11 years of age. 2,282 were here in the United States. And they did monitor them, which is why it took longer for us to get a vaccine in these 5 to 11 years of age, because they had to gather data not only from us, from here in the United States, but they had to look worldwide to make sure that this vaccine was going to be safe in our kids who were 5 to 11 years of age before we started administering them. And when they looked at, they saw a few side effects, great robust response, and they said benefits of this vaccine definitely outweigh the risks. So this is how the vaccine came to fruition. You know, we're given the green light for it. So, and we have to remember that the actual mechanism of the mRNA vaccine has been around for about 10 years.
Yeah.
So this is a really, really good thing. It was the perfect mechanism for COVID-19 vaccination.
Wasn't it a woman who came up with it?
Yes, it was.
Hello. So stop questioning the woman. Any information on its effects on fertility in women?
Okay, so we do have studies now that show no effect of any of the vaccines, both mRNA or the actual Johnson and Johnson, on fertility.
Gotcha. And she had another one. What were the most severe side effects seen during the COVID clinical studies for children?
Good question. So the most severe that they actually said was, so most common again, sore arm, fatigue, and fever. The worst symptoms that they had, which were very in low cases as well too, were actually fever that was prolonged greater than 24 hours. And they also saw actually a case of, no cases of Guillain-Barré. That's a question I get asked. No cases of myocarditis, no blood clots, and no really other severe actual symptoms other than the fever and fatigue.
Is there a place where people can read what the ingredients are?
Yes. So if you go onto the Pfizer website, you'll see the actual PI there. And what it does is it tells you exactly all the ingredients in the mRNA vaccine.
Perfect. And I'm going to finish with this one. Can you substitute Vicks for the vaccine?
No, even though our abuelitas love Vicks, everything else too, we cannot substitute it for the vaccine.
Don't eat it. Don't drink it. Don't inhale it. Don't do all those things that they did to you as children.
No.
There are generations of us scarred by it.
How many of us did not get it rubbed on our chest?
On your chest, right here.
In the nose.
So, because I am Moderna, I'll look at the instructions and it says, don't put it anywhere near orifices. And my mom would be like, mete eso ahí adentro. Because that way you can breathe correctly.
It's so true.
Hold on. I want to see this real quick. Oh, great. Oh, good. And I'm glad that can you explain to everyone so parents know the doctor must report? What does that mean? Can you read what that means? Can you explain virus to everyone so parents know that doctor must report all side effects?
Oh yes.
VARS?
So what they're looking at is any vaccine adverse reaction
Uh-huh.
must be reported. So this
Yeah.
is why, as doctors, when we're administering the vaccine and someone calls us and tells there's an actual adverse reaction to it, say a kid had an allergic reaction, we are supposed to actually report it to the CDC. It gets written up and then it gets reported. So people know that there's monitoring all throughout the clinical studies and even after, once we start administering the vaccine as well.
See, but I still don't trust the vaccine because the government is pushing it so bad and they never did that with any other shot. That government is not responsible for what happened after the shot. Was the polio shot not mandated?
So we have to say that, look, we have a Pfizer vaccine that's now FDA approved for adults. It's under emergency use authorization for 5 to 11 years of age, but it has the same seal of approval, the same green light as your polio, as your tetanus vaccine, as your MMR, measles, mumps, rubella vaccine. Remember, these vaccines have eradicated diseases that killed a lot of people. COVID-19 has killed a lot of people, and it's a worldwide pandemic. The reason why the government is pushing it so much is because it wants to save lives. It really does. We want to decrease actual disease load. We want to bring back the economy. We want to bring back the family gatherings. We want the resurgence of everything. But the only way it can actually happen is if enough people get vaccinated. And this is why I always tell people vaccinating is an act of love and it's an act of respect towards life as well too, because we're not only protecting our kids, we're protecting our elders, our family, our community, our country, and the world. The world needs vaccines too.
Mm-hmm. I think it's very important that I understand all the concerns. I understand that a lot of people have baggage. I understand that a lot of people may have not been lucky enough or blessed enough to receive the best medical care or medical care at all. I understand that there is history in various communities of being taken advantage of, but the proof is in the pudding. And I know that this topic has been politicized, but if you think about it, the fast tracking of the vaccine was under the Trump administration. So he believed that that was the way out. And so does the Biden administration. And not to toot our own horn, but the reason that Puerto Rico is now the #1 vaccinated place in the United States, because we are a colony of the United States, is because they didn't politicize it, because all political parties were on board to vaccinate our people. And you understand that when a place is so small and so poor, if we get COVID, they get a disaster on the island. So that is the mentality we have to have. It's 2021, and we have the advantage of having these advances in medicine. You are all asking excellent questions. You are all asking questions out of love and concern and coming from the places of whatever trauma you went through, and we appreciate it and we hear you. But that's why I wanted to have Dr. Mora here today, so that you understand that we're all in this together and that she's here to answer all those questions from a place of respect and knowledge. Yep. Look, no llores, no llores. And you are getting so much love from all your patients. There are patients everywhere here saying how amazing you are, how committed you are. Amiga, anything else you want to add?
No, I mean, I'm coming from a place where, honestly, ever since I heard the FDA approved this vaccine for kids 5 to 11 years of age, I feel like I'm on a media tour, but it's a fun media tour. It's full of light and hope. It's getting these little ones vaccinated, because if we think about it, they're counting on us to keep them protected. They are our little citizens, but we want to give them a voice. And this is where, Anna is a mom and me as a doctor and a loving, loving aunt, try to give these kids a voice. And also you as mommies, and I know you're our audience today. There's a lot of concern. A lot of actual people have told me, well, I knew I was going to get my teenagers vaccinated right away because they were going out and we were not going to let them bring COVID into the house. But Dr. Mora, my little ones, are they going to be okay? That's a big concern and worry. And what I tell, parents is look at how much protection it's a 91% efficacious vaccine. It's going to help save lives. It's going to help keep schools open. It's going to keep them protected and out of the hospital. And it's going to lead us into that herd immunity that we've been wanting. Vaccinating these kids they are going to be the little heroes that are going to get us out of this pandemic by getting vaccinated.
Una última. I'm so sorry, but I don't want to leave, and because these are questions that haven't been popped up. Was the vaccine tested on children with illnesses like autism or bipolar disorder?
Good question. So autism, there was not actually one of the characteristics that was in kids in the study. So no, I have to answer no to autism. And with autoimmune diseases, I know there were no autoimmune. That was an exclusion criteria. Cancer patients were also not tested when it came to kids ages 5 to 11 years of age as well too. So in these populations, definitely talk to your doctor. And, obviously talk to them about the benefits versus the risk of the vaccine in these kid populations.
What are they going to do with cancer patients? Like, what? Because I know I have a leukemia survivor in my good group of friends, and her doctor wanted her to get it immediately. But if people are going through chemo or radiation and children in that sense, what are they doing with these patients?
One thing they're doing is they're actually, once they're in remission or they're in a good spot, Anna, that's when they can get vaccinated.
Okay.
But while their immune system is very suppressed, then the last thing you want to do is give them a vaccine because it will push their immune system even more. So in that sense, it's getting everyone else around them vaccinating at this time until they can get their vaccine safely.
And when it comes to children in the autism spectrum or bipolar, is the concern that there may be something, like Claudia's concern can be that something in the ingredients may trigger something?
Yeah, I think that's a big concern in a lot of mommies as well too, with kids with autism. And we know that other vaccines have not been associated with autism, just to bring that fact out. Yeah. And one thing we know with the COVID-19 vaccines as well too, I don't expect it to flare like autism. I don't expect it to actually bring it on either or worsen any autistic features. But again, talk to your doctor before you actually go and get the vaccine, especially if you have these concerns.
Well, thank you so much. And if you're watching this recorded, you can follow her on social media. You can watch her on Univision in Spanish, and you can see her everywhere in English as well. And she's going to be vaccinating little kids soon, including mine. So actually, don't worry. If you can't, I have a pediatrician that I can go to.
No, it'll be my pleasure, Anna, to see Alex in clinic. Absolutely.
Oh my goodness. All right, Dr. Mora, thank you so much. I really appreciate you taking the time to do this with us today.
You're welcome. Blessings to everyone, and let's get our little ones protected and get them vaccinated. Let's get out of this pandemic.
Oh, let's do this. Por fin.